Good morning, everyone, and thanks for coming to my talk. Today, I'm going to tell you about what we see as the next step in virtual reality. This concept of life like VR. So, what I want to tell you today is this concept of a perfect illusion of life like VR. This is VR that is so good, so comfortable, so natural, that you just forget that you have a headset, right? That you cannot tell the difference between looking at a screen or looking at the real thing. And I believe that once we get to this point, it's where VR is going to finally jump away out of niche and entertainment segments and really change the way we interface with computers, right? At home, at office, and for any kind of activities from social networking to healthcare. So, today I'm going to be talking about headsets. But of course, if we want to have this kind of life like VR, it's more than what we can just see. It's about all of our senses. It's a full body experience. But today, I'm only going to focus in the sensory limits of VR. Here we're making two main contributions. One is quantifying the requirements of human visual perception, and second, establish a technical roadmap that will help us get there to untether life like VR headsets. So, what does it take to get to this point? Well, it will take two things. First, it will take a massive amount of GPU power and a very large amount of pixels. How much GPU I'm talking about here? Well, at least 2 orders of magnitude more than a Titan B, which is the state-of-the-art consumer GPU, and a whopping amount of almost 300 trillion pixels per second. And I will explain why I get this number. First, let me tell you about the limits of VR. So, field of view. This is simple. We can see per eye 165 degrees and 135 in the vertical, for a total of 210 in horizontal. But let me spend more time in some of the other aspects. For example, the resolution. When we go to the doctor, we are like, oh, I want to get 20/20 vision, right? I want to be healthy. What does that mean? Well, if we look at the well-known Snellen chart, being 20/20 means that you can see at 20 feet what a healthy person can see also at 20 feet. If you are, for example, 20/40, that means that you can see at 40 feet what a normal person will see at 20 feet. But exactly what this means. Let's take a closer look at this chart. To be healthy, we have to see this line here, the 20/20 line, at 20 feet. That means that we have to be able to tell the different bars of this letter E at that distance. This letter has a separation of 1.75 millimeters. This means that for you to see that at a distance of 20 feet, you are being able to tell two contours separated by 1 arc minute. In other words, your resolution is of 60 pixels per degree. Now, let's talk about frame rate. How many frames do you need to be able to not be able to tell that you are looking at a screen? Well, if I ask you today, like, what do you think, I will get many different answers. 15, 30, 16, 90, 1,000. Well, I will get to that point. Most of these screens that we have now are based on the concept of critical fusion rate, which is the frame rate threshold at which you start seeing a sequence of images as animation. That frame rate, it can change depending on the content, depending on the person, depending on the illumination. But it can be as high as 60. And that's why most games, monitors, etc. are 60. Does that mean that 60 frames per second is enough? No, we need much more than that. We need 1800, and I will tell you why. Let's take a look at how images get imprinted into the retina. So I'm taking this is derived from the time and space diagrams, but I'm trying to use animation to make it clear. Here we have a human eye and a retina, and over there we have an object that we are looking at. Let's see what happens when we look at a static object. We will see the object, and this object will hit our retina, well, an image of that object. And this is being continuously integrated so that we can interpret this image. When the object is not moving, it's easy. If it is moving, well, the image will move accordingly into our retina as well. But what happens when we're looking at a display? Well, displays are not continuous, they are discrete. So instead of having this guy moving continuously in a smooth sequence, we will have discrete steps, which will be reflected in our retina as well. And that is fine, as long as we hit this fusion frequency that I mentioned. The problem comes when we are starting to follow objects. Our eyes are really good at tracking things. When we are like following a line, an object, a person, we are predicting the movement of that object, and we are moving ahead of time so that that object can stay in the center of our view. So kind of like this. The little guy moves, and our eyes move at the same time, making sure that that guy is still in the center of our eyes. Why? Because at the center of our retina, there is a region called fovea, where acuity is the highest. But what happens if we are looking at a discrete object? Well, then things get more complicated, right? Because our eyes will start moving ahead of time, expecting this object to move. But that object is not moving until the next refresh rate, right? So all this time that the object is moving ahead of time, it's getting an incorrect imprint in the retina. And we have a result kind of like this. So let's look at this in fast forward. Most of the time, the image is incorrect. And this results in an imprint. Actually, it's not very clear, but like you will get like multiple images here and a blurry total, instead of having a single solid image as you get in real life. But let's see a clear example of how this looks like. This is a video of Jodder, this annoying artifact, and you can see it here. If you don't see the project, everything is looking good, but you can take a look at this in your cell phone if you want to. It's this notion of vibration, kind of a mixture of smoothing and strobing. You can actually see this in movies too when the screen is very big, but this is something we see in VR very often. So this is something we want to avoid because it also makes us feel sick. So how do we avoid this Jodder feeling? Well, we need to minimize the display's distance. What is this distance? Is the amount of error we have between, the maximum amount of error we have between the position an object should be in our retina and the location it currently is, right? How can we minimize this? Well, the easiest way to do that is to increase the frame rate. With faster frame rate, the display's distance at every given update point is going to be less. How many frames do we need to make sure this goes away? Well, we need to make the frame rate as high as to make this distance the minimum that the display can show. That will be 1 pixel. And ideally, if we are looking at 20/20 vision, we are looking at 1 arc minute. What is this frame rate? This depends on resolution. If we look at current headset, we don't need that much of a high frame rate. Current headsets have a pixel density of, well, a pixel per degree of 11. And if we can displace up to 30, forgot to mention, the maximum velocity of the tracking motion we have is 30 degrees per second. That's the maximum we can do. If we are tracking something faster than that, we go into something called saccades, that's not continuous. So okay, coming back to this point. We have 11 pixels per degree, and we are displacing 30 degrees per second. So that gives a total of 330 pixels per second. Anyway, that means that we need 330 frames to displace only 1 pixel. At 2020, we will need instead 1800, 60 by 30. If we add up, we get a great total of 300 trillion pixels, right? So, let me give you a word about acuity really quickly. We have only 60 pixels per degree in the fovea. That means in the central region. People in computer graphics have taken notice of this, and they say, like, well, you know, if your acuity decreases with eccentricity, let's give you less pixels in the periphery, right? Well, it's hard to get this. This is called foveated rendering. The problem with this is that you need very accurate eye tracking, and it has to be a very responsive system to react to your eye movements. The best that the state-of-the-art foveated rendering can do is save you up to 70% of the pixels, which is a lot, but 30% of 300 billion is still 80 billion, right? So we're still in problems. Now let's take a look at what's the road ahead to go to this point. Well, I have very good news. Displays may actually be able to support this, and I have 2 good examples of prototypes doing this. NVIDIA recently shown a prototype of a display doing 1700 Hz, presumably for VR. And SEL in Japan recently shown a display doing 1058 pixels per inch. That is equivalent for a 10-inch display to 64 pixels per degree. So we can expect to be there by 2025. Now the problem is GPUs. This is a chart showing GPU improvements over the last 8 years, and we have seen very dramatic improvements in GPU technology. This is mostly done because of the constant increases in the fabrication process of GPUs. Unfortunately, well, we are catching up with Moore's law, and after 5 nanometers, it's going to be very hard to keep shrinking the process. There are two things that can happen. We either have a breakthrough in quantum computing or some alternate technology, and we keep the pace. If that happens, we will get to 180 Hertz. That's still very far from 1800. Worst case, we plateau at 5 nanometers, and we are still quite far. So what can we do? Well, it's clear that GPU is going to be the bottleneck. So if we want to have a untethered headset, we better do wireless, right? We need to have a desktop GPU, the best GPU that we can get at the moment, and offload from it. And here comes another interesting point. If we want to offload, what kind of bandwidth we need? I won't have time to explain color, but we need 96 bits per pixel. That means we need 27 trillion bits per second, or 8 trillion with foundation. That's a lot, right? Let's take a look at, for example, at what we can do with 60 GHz wireless. And this is something that is very promising because headsets like the Vive are already using it to do streaming of VR. Well, if we look at the roadmaps in 11AB, 11AY, the maximum in theory that we can get is 176 gigabits per second, which is clearly not enough for what we need. There is another interesting option that is using free space optics. Free space optics can give us several terabits per second of bandwidth. And it's known to work for buildings with micromotions, but in general, it's very hard to make it work when the receiver is under human motion. Here I have a nice prototype that Manny, Ahorita Manicanta, built over the summer. Like pretty impressive stuff. I hope we will have something nice to report in the near future about it. But it's another promising way of doing these things. Now, you will tell me now, hey Eduardo, so why are you talking about compression? Nobody does raw video, and you are right. We can do two things. We can do lossless compression that will get us down to 3 to 1, which is still a lot. Or we can take a compromise. We can go H264, 265, and add this kind of compression artifacts. The problem is when the screen is this close to your eyes, you start noticing. And if these artifacts that you can see in compression video are not balanced, let's say you see more on your right eye than your left eye, that leads to double vision and it can be very uncomfortable. But there is something interesting. Normally, you will avoid doing compression because of latency. But if we reduce the latency of the display and the render time, we have a lot of budget to do that. So that's an interesting way to look at it. There is an opportunity to devise a new encoder that is suitable for VR, that can take advantage of the very fast frame rate and can give us images that won't make us sick. And finally, another direction that I would like to mention is speed computation. We can bridge the gap between what GPUs can do and what we receive by doing extrapolation. And there is a lot of work in the graphics community. I have done work on this myself. You can take an image and approximate frames in between. And you should do that at the client, because otherwise you will have a lot of latency. That's where it comes the opportunity to do portion of the computation in a desktop GPU and another part in our GPU. So in summary, like the take-home points I would like to give you is, lifelike VR displays are coming, but GPU will be the bottleneck, which is not necessarily a bad thing because that gives us many opportunities to do cool research. And some of the ones I mentioned are speed computation, faster wireless links, video compression, but we can look also at things like doing better foveation and understanding the human perception at these high frame rates and pixel densities. So that's it. I will be happy to take questions.